Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I've said on this platform that Zimbabwe is a failed state. We are a failed state. That is the reality. One of the reasons why we are a failed state is that we seem to repeat the same mistakes over and over again. We never seem to learn from the past. One of the areas where one would say by now this should be a settled issue is that Chamisa and his MDC/CCC friends are corrupt, incompetent, and utterly useless. They've been on the political stage this last 25 years. Their number one task was that they would implement the democratic changes necessary to end the Zanu PF dictatorship. 25 years, 5 of which they were in the GNU when they had the best opportunity to implement those reforms. They failed to implement even one token reform. Not even one. Worse still, ever since the GNU debacle, they've conned the people of Zimbabwe to participate in flawed elections, arguing that they have devised ways of winning rigged elections. So from 2013, after the GNU, all the elections the nation has participated on the basis of an idiotic lie that the opposition will win those elections because they've stopped Zanu PF rigging the elections. What is important here is that people believed it and they participated, only to find that after participating, they've given Zanu PF legitimacy. We cannot keep repeating the same mistake over and over again. And yet, here we are. One cannot deny that there is still a rump of Zimbabweans out there who still believe that Chamisa is a demigod who can do no wrong and is the nation's leader who will get the nation out of this mess. Here is a video clip that has been circulating on social media praising Chamisa to the high heavens. No point in playing it to the end. There are people, whether we want to accept it or not, who believe that Chamisa is the answer. The question is, they failed to learn from the past. The events of the last 25 years have been as if nothing ever happened. That is the tragedy of Africa. That is the reason why we keep repeating the same mistakes over and over again. Chamisa is not a demigod. Chamisa has proven beyond all reasonable doubt that he is corrupt, incompetent, a liar, and a conman. Why has that message failed to filter through? That is the question we must now address ourselves. Why is it Zimbabweans are not learning from the past? There are mechanisms of getting there. And I think one of the obvious mechanisms is what was given by George Orwell in his book, Animal Farm. To those of you who have not read the book, I strongly recommend that if you have a chance to read it, it's worth reading. In the book, George Orwell talks of the horse Boxer. Boxer was one of those animals who was intellectually challenged. Let's put it that way. It took Boxer the same time it took other animals to learn the whole alphabet. He could only manage to learn the first four letters of the alphabet in the same time. And then he moved on to the next four. And it was realized it took just as long to learn those next four letters of the alphabet. And here is the surprise. By then, they found he had forgotten the first four. So the mechanism for failing to learn from the past, one can say it. If you're also intellectually challenged, that you cannot understand the first 5 years, and by the time you manage to understand the first 5 years of our independence, and you try to move on to the next 5 years, you've forgotten the first. It's clear why such a person will never understand anything. Understanding that Chamisa lied to the people during the 2023 elections about C winning the elections because he had plugged the vote rigging loopholes has been too much for some people. They clearly have not understood that idea that Chamisa lied to them. Here he is a few weeks before the actual elections themselves, assuring the nation that he was going to win those elections, and he was preparing his cabinet.
Makorokoto Zimbabwe nokuti hakuna munhu anomira kana denga raronga plan denga harifoiri plan yamwari haifoiri ini ndatanga kugadzira cabinet. There is no way we are not going to form a new cabinet. There is no way we are not going to have a celebration. There is no way we are not going to have an inauguration. Let's start preparing for our inauguration. Let's start preparing for our celebration.
I repeat, Chamisa lied when he said he had plugged the vote rigging loopholes. Why is it so difficult for millions of Zimbabweans out there to accept that he lied to them? He called them to participate in a flawed election only to give Zanu PF legitimacy. Yet, it seems to be a bridge too far for some people to accept that he lied. Well, like I said, you can refuse to accept it or not. The fact of the matter is he did lie. He did con millions of people to participate in flawed elections. Here is a BBC reporter who took Chamisa to task on this issue of lying.
Ende patakasangana na Trump akatibvunza nawe akomana mari yamuri kuda kuti nyika ifambe imari.
Serious questions were raised about your behaviour in Washington, D.C. You did see some senior people on Capitol Hill, some Congress people, but you also claimed that you'd seen Donald Trump. You claimed you had a conversation with him in which you said he asked you how much you needed to move the country forward. You told him $15 billion, and he said to you that he would provide the money if you won the election. That was not true, was it?
Sangana na Trump akatibvunza nawe akomana.
It was not true that you'd seen Donald Trump and that Donald Trump indicated to you that he would provide, if you won the election,
but
$15 billion.
All those statements were said by other people, not what I said.
Well, no, because there is a video which shows you at a rally in January back home in Zimbabwe saying that Donald Trump had pretty much promised you $15 billion. To be clear, because some people in Zimbabwe are still confused, you're now telling me you did not meet Donald Trump.
We did not.
The truth of the matter is, we have been over this so many times. After 45 years of rigged elections and bad governance, this really should be a settled issue. Chamisa is not a demigod. There is a mountain of evidence to show that Chamisa is corrupt, incompetent, a liar, and a conman. This should be settled. But the tough reality is we have millions of our own people out there who still cannot reconcile with the truth because they never learn from the past. They forget so readily. They never understood what the GNU was all about. They never understood that MDC guys sold out during the GNU. They believed Chamisa when he told them that he had plugged the vote rigging loopholes, and they participated in the flawed elections. But at the time the elections results came out, and it was clear that Zanu PF had rigged those elections, they cannot link the two. Chamisa's lie and they are being conned to participate. They could not connect the two. So this is why they still believe Chamisa is the national leader. And needless to say, Chamisa is gearing to con them to participate in 2028, and history will repeat itself. Those who do not learn from the past are doomed to repeat the same mistakes over and over again. But after 45 years of rigged elections and bad governance, one would have thought that the people of Zimbabwe have learned something. But clearly, there are some people who are incapable of learning. That is the reality. Tragic as it is, that is the reality. It really is sad if we should find ourselves going into 2028 and we participate in the flawed elections and give Zanu PF legitimacy and perpetuate our own suffering. But sometimes one can only do so much. If somebody is incapable of learning, there is really nothing they can do, one can do. In Animal Farm, by the time those who were teaching Boxer realized that he had forgotten the first 4 letters, they gave up. So poor Boxer never knew even the first 4 letters of the alphabet. And in the case of Zimbabwe, we have people like that. And unfortunately, they have the voice and the vote. And those people are the ones deciding the nation's destiny. They are holding the nation to ransom. I think one of the cases for Zimbabwe was that we should have given people who really did not understand what their responsibilities are as a voter, the right to vote. Because both Zanu PF leaders and MDC-CCC leaders have taken advantage of the ignorance of those people to con them to do one idiotic thing after another. We are stuck. We are a failed state. We are a pariah state because we've got millions of Zimbabweans out there who really do not know how to use their vote. They've got to rely on conmen who tell them, oh, you should do this. And in some of those cases, you find it is not even in their own public interest. And those individuals carry out those activities. The worst thing that can happen to Zimbabwe is that people should be conned by the likes of Chamisa to participate in flawed 2028 elections only to perpetuate the Zanu PF dictatorship. But that reality cannot be ignored. It is distinctly possible. It has happened before, and it's likely to repeat itself. Tragic. That is truly heartbreaking.